Hello chaps, Paul Curran here. I hope you and all the listeners are well. This is being recorded from lovely Devon, first thing in the morning, a beautiful sunny morning. And I thought as a consequence the poems this week should reflect this lovely place and this time of year. So with that said, I am going to begin by reading a sonnet that I wrote, and it appeared in my second book, Repeat Fees. Before I do that, and in case I forget, I must point out that last week I made an error in suggesting that it was Edward VII that abdicated before George VI reluctantly came to the throne. Of course, the discerning listeners will know that it was Edward VIII. My thanks to Mr. Butler in one of Warwickshire's southernmost villages who highlighted my error. Anyway, here we are after the royal wedding, and a poem about Devon, much loved by Ted Hughes, of course. This poem is called Tender to Enchantress. The tender of larger boats are the small skiffs that you see in the bays around Devon and Cornwall, also known as a pinnace. Tender to Enchantress. Just sped down to Ted's orchard in the west. Last minute thing, restless to keep afloat. Late spring chill still necessitates a coat. Traffic so-so, but the rain proves a test. A change, they say, is as good as a rest. Hardly darkish, and I'm parked by the boats, not making sense of some nonsense I wrote. Dressed a mess, feel blessed I'm nobody's guest. In black, on the side of an 8-foot skiff, tender to enchantress in fading paint. Smashed cans in the pinnace, rope, seaweed mess. Gulls are wheeling high the listening cliff. Tugging tide tickles the tired chain restraint, as now only the sand slows my progress. The second poem that I'd like to read for you today is a sonnet, again, written by Edna St. Vincent Millay, who lived between 1892 and 1950. I think there's something wonderfully elegiac about this sonnet, and it's very, very tender and touching. It's simply called Sonnet. What lips my lips have kissed, and where and why, I have forgotten, and what arms have lain under my head till morning. But the rain is full of ghosts tonight that tap and sigh upon the glass and listen for reply. And in my heart there stirs a quiet pain for unremembered lads that not again will turn to me at midnight with a cry. Thus, in the winter stands the lonely tree, nor knows what birds have vanished one by one, yet knows its boughs more silent than before. I cannot say what loves have come and gone. I only know that summer sang in me a little while, that in me sings no more. It's very poignant, that sonnet, I feel. The third poem that I'd like to read today is by an old friend of ours, Philip Larkin, who lived from 1922 to 1985. This poem, though, I feel isn't typical of Larkin's sardonic tone. Rather, it's an enchanting celebration of this time of year. I think the first two lines are just tremendous. The Trees by Philip Larkin. The trees are coming into leaf, like something almost being said. The recent buds relax and spread, their greenness is a kind of grief. Is it that they are born again and we grow old? No, they die too. Their yearly trick of looking new is written down in rings of grain. Yet still the unresting castles thresh in full-grown thickness every May. Last year is dead, they seem to say. Begin afresh, afresh, afresh. It's superb, I'm sure you'll agree. I was reminded, just reading that, of some lines, a line of Shakespeare that I read last week from a sonnet, talking about the autumnal or even wintry leaves, as he described them as bare, ruined choirs. It's magnificent. Moving swiftly on, the fourth poem that I'd like to read today is, in fact, it is a celebration of this time of year, and this is what we're about to hear is the translation of the original, as will become obvious. It's actually from the King James Bible, published in 1611, when Shakespeare was still with us, of course. And the first folio of Shakespeare in 1623, after his death in 1616, and the King James Bible of 1611, it could be said are the two most influential books in the English language. This is from the Song of Solomon, and it goes as follows. My beloved spake and said unto me, Rise up, my love, my fair one, and come away. For lo, the winter is past, the rain is over and gone. The flowers appear on the earth, the time of the singing of the birds is come, and the voice of the turtle is heard in our land. The fig tree putteth forth her green figs, and the vines with the tender grape give a good smell. Arise, my love, my fair one, and come away. Now, for a second sonnet of mine, specifically relating to Devon. This is called Ode, Ode, or Meeting Keats on the Beach. I found myself in Teignmouth, which is a charming seaside town. It's obviously had its heyday in the not too distant past, and although it's had money spent on it recently, and the theatre there, the Pavilions Theatre, is a tremendous boon to the town. There is the faded glamour that you associate with many English seaside towns. Also, it has the great claim that John Keats stayed there in 1818, and I understand he was very fond of Teignmouth and that area of South Devon in which it lies. I think, just for clarity's sake, you should know that the Church Rocks is the name of a rock just outside Teignmouth, and I think in the mid-1970s, a young lad swimming either on his own or with a pal discovered some great guns from a vessel that had been resting on the seabed some distance out from shore, and he discovered those. They're called Saker guns. Imagine the excitement when that occurred. This is Ode, Ode, Meeting Keats on the Beach. John Keats stopped in Teignmouth. I read an ode he wrote. I've always loved this fading place. Pier, seagulls, palm trees, never a parking space. London Bridge's Dartmoor granite once stowed. Tattooed old bruisers with tales to offload. Boozing tourists, they abandon all grace, staggering as in a three-legged race. All sorts of dogs not doing what they're told. Sure, Keats in his day would have sensed the charm, been seen on the seafront hearing same waves. Church Rock's wreck's Saker gun, not found by then. Exotic, yet modest, looked on by farm, scuffed gem in bay, hills, trees, sea breeze and caves, birthplace for John of his Endymion. Finally today, I would like to share with you a poem which I had as good as forgotten. I had to read this some time ago when I was at drama school, and I remember it really chiming with me then. I hope it chimes with you now. It's called Snow, and it's by Louis MacNeice, who lived from 1907 to 1963. Snow. The room was suddenly rich, and the great bay window was spawning snow and pink roses against it, soundlessly collateral and incompatible. World is suddener than we fancy it. World is crazier and more of it than we think. Incorrigibly plural. I peel and portion a tangerine and spit the pips and feel the drunkenness of things being various. And the fire flames with a bubbling sound, for world is more spiteful and gay than one supposes. On the tongue, on the eyes, on the ears, in the palms of one's hands. There is more than glass between the snow and the huge roses.